Fascinating as always. Michael, thank you for the time. Bloomberg economics editor. Does he play keyboards? Is that real?
I don't know. I just thought Michael and the keys.
Oh, that was, see, very good. Yeah. Let us know,
Quick wit over here.
Absolutely. This would be like a dance band, right? This would be kind of a nightclub act.
Yeah.
I feel like. I'm going to keep pushing you in that direction. I think I see something here.
Okay.
We can do this. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington, along with Kaylee Lyons. Find us on YouTube. Search Bloomberg Global News. Of course, you can always hear us on the radio and on the satellite and the podcast. This is Bloomberg.
Company news headlines on Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Netflix plans to open new destinations where fans can immerse themselves in the worlds of their favorite TV shows, shop for clothing, eat themed food, and maybe even try a Squid Game obstacle course. It is dubbed Netflix House. The venues will feature a mix of retail, dining, and live experiences. The streaming TV pioneer plans to open the first two in the U.S. in 2025 and then expand the concept around the world. Netflix shares right now are lower by 1.5%. Walgreens Boots Alliance has announced a $1 billion cost-cutting program as it prepares to reset its growth strategy under a new CEO. Delta reported quarterly earnings that beat analyst estimates, and with more on that story, here's Bloomberg's Erica Herskowitz.
Charlie, Delta cites rising fuel prices and larger than expected aircraft maintenance costs. Delta is the first major U.S. carrier to report financial results for the third quarter. a period when the largest globally focused airlines benefited as international summer travel extended into the fall. But airlines were battered by a nearly 25% sequential jump in fuel prices, and Delta's maintenance spending climbed unexpectedly on higher costs, longer repair times, and supplier problems with engine parts. Both United and American Airlines will report next week. Charlie?
And that's Erica Herskowitz reporting. We've got Delta down now by 2.3%. American Airlines trading lower by 3.9%. And UAL, parent of United, down 3.1%. Those are our top company stories at this hour, and this is Bloomberg.
You're listening to Bloomberg Sound On with Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines on Bloomberg Radio.
We have a winner. We have a Fat Bear winner. Is that real?
Yeah, forget about the speakers.
All right, fantastic. We might not have a speaker, but we have a Fat Bear. We'll hit that next with Kaylee after we get an update on world and national news with Nancy Lyons in the Bloomberg 99.1 newsroom in Washington. Hi, Nancy.
Thanks, Joe. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is making the rounds in Israel, is expanding his travel schedule and will go to Qatar later this week to discuss Hamas. With leaders there, Qatar is seen as a possible intermediary in discussions about hostages being held by Hamas. And it's also overseeing the release of $6 billion in Iranian funds. The U.S. and Qatar have reached an informal understanding, according to people familiar with the situation, to hold off of distributing that oil revenue until more is learned about potential Iran involvement in the Hamas attacks. Secretary Blinken says so far none of that money has been released.
We have strict oversight of the funds, and we retain the right to freeze them.
Blinken says he'll also visit Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Egypt. Well, the death toll is now up to more than 2,600 in the war between Israel and Hamas. 27 Americans are included now in that count. Plus, there are more people missing, many believed to be hostages. The International Committee of the Red Cross says it's been in touch with Hamas and Israeli authorities as it works to secure the release of those being held. Congressman Steve Scalise is struggling to find the votes he needs to become the next Speaker of the House. Bloomberg's deputy congressional editor, Mike Dorning, tells Bloomberg Sound On the rifts that were created over the ousting of Speaker Kevin McCarthy have only grown deeper.
What's happened is instead of healing or closing any of those rifts, they've only deepened, and there's more fractures that are appearing. So basically, the Republican more fractures that are appearing. So basically, the Republican Party over the last 9 days in the House has pulled farther apart instead of coming together. And we're not at the point yet where they're coming together.
Bloomberg's Mike Dorning. One Republican lawmaker left a closed-door meeting earlier today saying it's a Festivus in there with an airing of grievances. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons. Now back to you, Joe and Kaylee.
It's a Festivus for the rest of us. I can only imagine being in that room. All right, so first of all, we have to get to the Fat Bear. Just need to make sure that this is on, right? The microphone? I have to check after listening to Donald Trump last night.
This is the worst microphone I think I've ever had. I hope you can hear me back there. Justin, don't pay the bill for this mic. I'm blowing out my voice talking to this stupid mic. This is the worst mic I've ever had. Okay, now we'll get back to the speech. I'm trying to get their attention. Turn up the mic. Is it okay?
Turn it up. It's fine.
And then I don't pay a bill and they say, Trump doesn't pay his contractors.
You know what it's like when you're on a microphone, you can't hear yourself?
Yes, like me right now.
It's, kind of confusing. Well, the fact of the matter is, though, we have news that's important in our remaining moment. This is the update you've been waiting for since we broached the topic last week. We have a Fat Bear winner.
We do.
All right, Kaylee Lyons on the beat. This is like your assignment for the day. Who is it?
Bear 128, also known as Grazer.
Grazer.
It's a mama bear, Joe.
Okay.
According to her biography, she's a large adult female, often one of the fattest bears to collect salmon on the Brooks River.
That doesn't seem nice to put
Also,
it that way.
a true mama bear, she's known to attack larger bears, even adult males, to ensure her cubs are safe.
Wow. Don't mess with mama bear.
Don't mess with mama bear.
Do we have a weight? Do we know, is there a weigh-in as part of this contest? I guess not.
Get them all to line up.
Just
in
take
a line,
look at that
step on the
picture.
scale.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is Cocaine Bear part of this, or that's a separate competition?
I think that's a
I saw
separate
that recently.
competition.
I hate to admit.
She defeated the second bear. Chunk was the name of the runner-up.
Named for the iconic Goonies character, I have no doubt. 747 won last year, I guess. Didn't even place in the top 3 this time, huh?
Yeah.
Lost
Michael
a little too
McKee
much
writes
weight.
in, he voted for Greaser.
Well played. Well played. Michael's a winner. That's why. I'm Joe Matthew with Kaylee Lyons. Bloomberg Business Week starts right now.
This is Bloomberg Business Week. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine. Plus, global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Tim Stenivek on Bloomberg Radio.
And a very good afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday, October 12th, 2023. Carol Masser along with Tim Stenivek. And 3 p.m. on Wall Street, but we're not on the East Coast.
Oh.
That's East Coast time. We're on the West Coast.
We are. It's noon here in L.A. It's where we are. We're live from Bloomberg Screen Time at Naya Studios, right in the heart of Hollywood, California.
We are definitely, and surrounded by celebrities, change makers, folks that...
Did you see Kris Jenner? She just walked by.
She just walked by. I was in the makeup room with her.
See, this is what I miss when I
Sharing
don't get my makeup
tips.
done.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, the focus is all about the next generation of pop culture. It's Bloomberg Screen Time. We're talking about moguls, celebrities, athletes, entrepreneurs. These are the folks that are at the center of it all, and they're tapping into trends and really driving the next wave of content that we all want to be consuming.
And also determining how that content is being created and delivered in so many different ways and all at the same time. And, you know, to us, where we are, it's kind of just like our broadcast. We're here, we're streaming on YouTube.
Yep.
We got Bloomberg Originals, we're on Sirius XM, we're on terrestrial radio. Later on, of course, on our podcast feed as well.
Yeah, exactly. Be sure to download it. That's a cheap tease, if you will. Anyway, coming up, folks, from Screen Time, we have some great guests. Jennifer Prince, Chief Commercial Officer for the LA Rams, just about commercializing the team and the team's content.
Maybe kind of wishing Taylor Swift were dating one of her players, too.
I think she probably does.
I think so.
We're also going to talk with the President of Entertainment and Technology over at EA, Electronic Arts. They are obviously well known for gaming, but they recently said bye-bye to their deal with FIFA that they had for a long time. So we're going to talk about that.
We also got Joanna Vincent on, the CEO of the nonprofit Sundance Institute, talking about the importance of independent artists. It's not just the Sundance Festival. That's what people know about.
Right.
But this is a year-round thing that happens that supports independent creatives and actually gets them making that content.
Such an important part of the content creation world. And then we're going to get into somebody who's got millions of TikTok followers, just like Tim and me.
No, I wish.
We've got Drew Afwalo. She's going to be up with us in just a moment. You've seen her videos. They're controversial. She takes people down, loves her fans. We're going to get into all of it.
First up, though, let's get a check on the top business stories and market stories at this hour. Here's Charlie Pellet.
All right, thank you very much. We got the bears growling on Wall Street. Mama and Papa Bear as well. The S&P halting a 4-day advance right now, down 31 points, 43.45 right now on that index. A move lower right now of 0.7%. Got to keep it locked into Bloomberg to see where things shake out at the close. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 205, lower by 0.6%. The Nasdaq Composite Index lower by 1.7%, down 0.8%. Small caps the underperformer with the Russell 2000 now lower by 2.4%. 10-year yield 4.70% with the 2-year at 5.06%. Spot gold 18.68 the ounce, down 0.3%. And West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.2%, 83.34 for a barrel of WTI. Stocks fell. Treasury yields rose as data bolstered speculation that the Fed is nowhere near declaring victory over inflation, with bets on another hike back to coin flip territory. So where does the economy head in the fourth quarter? Mona Mahajan is senior investment strategist at Edward Jones.
We're probably heading towards an economy that is slowing to below trend growth. So we've had a really nice first 3 quarters of above trend growth. We're probably looking at a couple quarters of below trend growth. Can stocks just kind of fly by these couple quarters? We would probably expect some volatility, especially after a nice kind of first half through July 31st.
And you can hear more of that conversation on the Tape podcast. You can download it wherever you get your podcasts. More on the economy and, of course, today's CPI report coming up with our Michael McKee right here on Bloomberg Business Week. Again, recapping, S&P down 31, drop there of 0.7%, 10-year yield 4.69%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It is below 5%. Just going to point that out. All right, you are listening and watching Bloomberg Business Week. We are live at Bloomberg Live Screen Time event on the West Coast. Some great guests coming up. But in the meantime, we've got to talk a little bit about the economic news today.
Yeah, we got some data today on inflation and, of course, on the jobs market as well. U.S. consumer prices advanced at a brisk pace. This for a second month, Carol. Mm-hmm. It reinforced the Federal Reserve's intent to keep interest rates high and bring down inflation. Core CPI, though, coming in line with estimates.
Right, and core is really important. And we heard Kaylee kind of pushing Mike a little bit.
Super core.
Mike McKee, of course, follows all of the comings and goings and then makes sense in terms of what it means for Fed policy. He's Bloomberg News International Economics and Policy Correspondent. He's back in our New York headquarters, our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. So, Mike, the data flow today, weekly jobless, and, of course, the inflation print. How does that change, if you will, at all, maybe what the Fed might do?
It leaves open the opportunity for them at this point to raise rates on November 1st, but I don't think the majority of them have already told us they're inclined to just skip this meeting. I don't think it changes their minds. The numbers were higher. I mean, the headline number was higher, largely because of energy prices, which, of course, the Fed can't do anything about. And we are now seeing oil prices and gasoline prices falling rapidly. So they'll probably look through that, and the core number is still relatively high, but it's slowly coming down. This was a bit stronger report than anticipated, yes, but they didn't ever think that this was going to be a very quick, smooth fall down to the 2% target. Their last forecast at the September Fed meeting was that PCE, which is usually lower than CPI, wouldn't get to 2% until 2026.
So I want to go where Kaylee went with you, Mike. Core
super core.
Well, core and super core.
Oh, I thought you wanted to talk about
that does
the bear,
exclude food and energy. Well, we'll get there, Mike.
They are,
we'll get there.
They are obsessed with it
I should say I've been thinking of you because there wasn't a government shutdown, so we're still getting the fat
We got a winner.
That's the important thing.
We can talk about that.
Yeah, we got a winner.
You want to ask about?
We'll get there. But let's talk
Supercore. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and just talk a little bit about that, the definition of it, and why that's becoming a metric that people are starting to pay attention to.
Well, it's becoming a metric people are paying attention to because Jay Powell brings it up at every meeting, and it is basically you take core inflation, which subtracts out food and energy, and then you also subtract out housing because housing is very slow to move because of the way it's constructed in the index. And if you take those three things out, you're left with basically services spending that reflects what is happening to wages, because wages are most of what the biggest expense for any kind of service provider. So the Fed is tracking that to see whether there are still wage pressures, how strong the economy is as companies still keep hiring. We saw the jobs report last week, whether that means that we're still going to have inflationary pressures from the job side and from the service industry side. And it did go up 0.6 this month, so a little bit stronger than it has been in recent months. If you want to worry about something, you could worry about that again. The trend has overall been down, so I don't think it's going to bother them. But I guess we should point out that it's Tim and Carol's fault that went up because one of the surprising jumps was airfares. You guys take off for Los Angeles and we get a rise in airfares. They saw you coming. And
Mike,
they said, we're going to raise.
I got to tell you, Mike, I'm seeing this now because we're booking stuff for the holidays. My family and I, to come to California for tickets for 3 people is like $4,500 to $5,000, Mike. And it's kind of blowing my mind because just a few months ago we were talking about these same tickets being in the $400 range.
Well, the airlines have worked hard to reduce capacity, and I say that with a straight face because basically they have. They want all the planes full, which if you've flown lately, you notice they pretty much are, and then they can raise prices. So they're making up for some of the money they lost, I guess, during the pandemic. And, you know, it's a free market out there, and unfortunately you're getting into the high price season.
Well, all I'm going to say is I had an empty seat next to me. I can't remember the last time I had an empty seat in business class.
It's okay. Mike's going to transfer some of his miles to me so I can afford that ticket.
I'm just saying, I was surprised about that, so I wondered if things were loosening up. Michael McKee, thank you so much. Always appreciate it. Michael McKee, of course, back there at New York headquarters of Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. We have a great guest. You come out to LA, yes, it's so much about the content business, the studios and all the good stuff like that, but you know, it's also known for some iconic sports teams. LA Lakers, LA Dodgers, LA Rams, just to name a few. Sports, too, is such a muse in terms of creating content here in the United States and really globally, and our next guest knows a lot about that. She's part of the LA Rams Inner Circle. She was in an earlier session here at Screen Time. It was called Perfecting Your Partnership Strategy in the World of Sports.
I got to catch a little bit of it.
You did?
It was great. Good to have you with us this afternoon. Jennifer Prince, she's Chief Commercial Officer for the LA Rams. She's on site here at Bloomberg Screen Time in LA. All about commercializing the LA Rams content business, helping connect the NFL team to a larger media landscape of social media, TV, and film. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
How was the session? It seemed like it went really well.
It was very dynamic. It went well, and it possibly could have gone on another 30 minutes.
I always feel like all of these, right? They're just such great discussions, and I think about the sports world generally. It is such a great, I'm no joke, it is such a great muse in terms of creating content. How do you think about it? You've got players, you've got teams, you've got lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, so sitting in the center of LA, we have an incredible team, an incredible brand. This brand is global. We have fans everywhere, and we get to play in SoFi Stadium, which is a beautiful mecca of, you know, what sports and entertainment and technology and that intersection is. And so we get to really lean into all of the assets, from the football players to the team to our coach, everything on the field, to then thinking about our brand and the way that we present ourselves and how we work with partners to reach our fans, our future fans, and really creating this intersection.
What's the thing that really moves the needle? That something happens, you post something, you know, and it's just like, it just blows up.
Yeah, so football first, right? Anything football.
From the game or any of it?
Any highlight, any moment, not only on the field, but also the arrivals and the talks with coach after the game, all of it. It all, resonates with fans, and it gives access. And so that access point is really what does well. Our fans, even naysayers, like to hear what coach has to say, whether we win or lose, and how he motivates the team and keeps the team moving. So I would say, like, the football first.
Silly me, I thought she was going to say Taylor Swift.
So, how much?
We have to ask.
Can we be? Let's be real. Like, were you guys? Can we have our Taylor Swift moment? Like, was it frustrating a little bit, or like, oh my God, because so much attention, right, has been on, Taylor, or trailer, as they call it. So how do you think about that?
Yeah, so really the NFL is having a moment, right? When you think about the fan base and everyone who rallies around football, and then you think about that future fan, and you think of that younger female demo and how to reach them. I mean, this is a moment, and it's not like Travis Kelce needed any help. He will be a Hall of Famer. He's incredible on the field. But the two of them together, it's a phenomenon. It's something that is really impacting ratings, to jersey sales,
to social media following. Are you also seeing an impact as a result?
I think just the overall consumption and who's watching and who's leaning in. We all need to lean into this moment. It isn't happening in our team, right, or within our family, but we still get to capitalize on what it means for this fan base to be so ripe and present at this time, which are young females.
Are you telling a member of the team, like, hey, there's a popular singer that's like, well, I think
she's not available.
Do you know what I think about the old Hollywood studio system, right? And they would link actors and actresses together just so that their picture showed up, just to create some momentum. I know. Who's saying, right? Who knows?
We don't know.
Well, it brings up an interesting point about the presence on social media that these
everyone has a point of view, and those who are notable can use their voice and carry their voice in all the right ways, and also can make some right and left turns. It isn't my job specifically to work with the players and player marketing. That's our CMO. We have teams of people doing that. But we have a really great team. I would say we have incredible players who are not necessarily leaning into things that they shouldn't be, and we like when they're using their voice. That helmet off, who they are as people, going through their journeys, their paths. Everyone has a story, so we like for them to tell their own story. But it's always something just to keep our eye on, but we have those who are well-behaved.
And if not, they probably get reminded to be well-behaved. Don't we all need that occasionally? Who is it that you like to take meetings with to figure out how do you best, kind of leverage your brand?
Yeah, so we have over 100 partners, and we don't just want to create volume and scale around these partnerships. We like to partner in deep, meaningful ways. We like to say we partner with purpose. And so when we're talking to brands, right, the existing brands that we have, from SoFi to Toyota and Pepsi to Verizon, we have so many incredible brands, and usually those want to lean into us, who are doing sports marketing, want to reach a future fan base with us and reach our existing fan base in meaningful ways with surprise and delights and offers and access, like I talked about.
What's the read that you're getting from your partners right now on the economy? We love talking to people like you because you see where the money's going. You see how much money is going to certain places.
Or not going.
Exactly. What is the read on the economy that you see from your perch as Chief Commercial Officer?
Yeah, so, we have the benefit of sitting in Los Angeles, and we are working typically with not only heads of marketing, but those in the region who are looking to increase sales, produce outcomes with us. So we like that we are a bridge and a conduit to providing outcomes. So that it's not just the upper funnel fun stuff in terms of marketing with brands. It's also getting down to metrics and measurement. So coming from a world that was highly measured, I ensure that my team has all the right partnerships in place with vendors so that we can provide outcomes. And so when we hear from a brand that they're doing incredibly well with us, we dig into that. What does that mean? We want to make sure that we're marching with our brands to the outcomes.
Is anybody pulling back, though, because of the economic
So, you know what, there are, I was going to say, so the few categories, right, that are having a harder time is whether it's crypto or some mortgage finance, interest rates, like the things that are present right now that you're more familiar with. Those are the categories who are at times having to either readjust or realign, but commit in different ways and at different levels.
All right, you're in an elevator with somebody who really matters, more important than us, and they said, give me 35, 40 seconds on Twitter. You know Twitter, this company. What do you say?
You were there for 8 years, Vice President.
Don't eat up her time.
On content partnerships. What is it?
Eat up time. Listen, I worked at Twitter. We were priding ourselves on being this megaphone to the world and really where public conversation could happen. We did all the right things. I left December of 21 a long time ago. What Twitter is now, it's just taken on to be X. It has a little different meaning, the way that they're leaning into product innovation, and no comment really other than I had incredible years there and miss those that I worked with.
Do you still use it?
I do. I'm not posting as much or tweeting, or it's not tweeting, it's posting.
That's kind of where I am.
And so I'm consuming for sport more than I'm talking about myself.
Yeah, it's a different world. Me too. I find myself backing up. What a pleasure. Thank you so much. So enjoyed
Appreciate
it.
you.
Jennifer Prince, she's Chief Commercial Officer for the LA Rams, on site at Bloomberg Screen Time in Los Angeles. I'm Carol Masser along with Tim Stanovic. Don't go anywhere. More to come from Screen Time here on the West Coast.
updates, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It's 3:21 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long at Bloomberg. We've got the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ in the red, well off session lows. S&P, though, halting a 4-day advance. Right now, the S&P is down 27, a drop there of 0.6%. Dow Industrials down 169, a decline for the Dow of 0.5%. NASDAQ down 86, a drop now of 0.6%. This update is brought to you by Glenmead. Glenmead offers sophisticated wealth and investment management solutions combined with the personalized service you deserve. Your wealth, your mission, your investments. Let's talk. Visit Glenmead.com to learn more. Stocks fell, Treasury yields rose as data bolstered speculation the Fed is nowhere near declaring victory over inflation, with bets on another hike back to coin flip territory. As for the overall economic backdrop, Oksana Aronoff is head of market strategy at JP Morgan Investment Management.
Any sector of this market that depends on cheap financing is going to struggle as we continue to live in this higher cost of capital world, and that will happen with or without a recession. I think that's really important to recognize. Whether we go into a recessionary backdrop or not, there's going to be a repricing of credit.
And you can hear more of that conversation on the Surveillance podcast. You can download it wherever you get your podcast. 10-year yield, 4.60%, with the 2-year right now, 5.06%. Spot gold down $5 the ounce to $18.69, drop there of 0.3%. And West Texas Intermediate crude down 7 cents, little changed, 83.42 a barrel on WTI. After earnings, shares of Walgreens Boots Alliance, they are rallying now by 5.85%. After earnings, Delta shares down by 2.5%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Carol Massar along with Tim Stanovic live here on the West Coast at Bloomberg Screen Time. And, going viral can be good or it can be bad.
I feel like it's more often bad than good.
Well, anyway, a discussion here at Screen Time was kind of all about this. It was entitled Viral Lessons, and it included top creators of social content. We have one of them with us. Drew Afwalo is TikTok creator and host of the comment section. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We are excited to have you here. And it is, right, viral. Like, it can be such a great thing, and then it can be rough. How do you ever think about when you're doing something like, all right, I'm going to get a lot of crap for this?
I mean, yeah, for my niche in particular, absolutely.
Get a lot of feedback.
Yeah,
feedback is one way to put it.
Yeah, feedback is definitely one way to put it. I built my business off the shoulders of men who hate me, so I'd call that a win for women of color. I think it's been a real consistent barrage of hate for so long now that I think it's just white noise to me. Specifically from misogynistic people in general. But
when you started, what did you think about what you wanted to do?
I mean, when I first originally started, I just started telling silly stories that made me laugh and made me giggle. And so some people started kind of relating to it. And then I had one video that really took off, and then it kind of just snowballed into this crusade, which I'm happy to carry out. And I have been for a long time now. But yeah, it was never anything I thought was going to happen, although now I'm glad it has.
But when you carry it out, I mean, it's not without its own challenges. You've been blocked, you've been banned, your account has been shut down.
Absolutely.
How do you get past those things?
I mean, I think I just, even when I lost my TikTok account 4 times, I got locked out of it. And it was when I was on a real growth spurt. I was growing 100,000 followers every other day. And so I got banned twice first, then I got signed, then I got banned 2 more times.
Why did that happen?
Mass reporting, which is an issue that I've talked to TikTok about too, which helps. It helps to have, a team. I think me getting a team really helped in that sense.
Do you have a direct line to TikTok now?
I have a rep. I think most creators do who are verified. They have some sort of contact person that they can reach out to if they have any issues at all. And once I got my contact person, I think it really kind of helped. Also, getting verified helps too. It helps legitimize you in the eyes of the app and also
Drew,
the algorithm.
You know, we're in this era of like trying to figure out so much social media out there, and there's misinformation, there's really problematic information, there's dangerous information, and then there's opinion and entertainment. What do you think is the fine line here?
I mean, I think for my particular niche, there is really no other side. It's you see bigotry platformed openly and publicly, so I respond to it accordingly. I don't give them a chance to defend themselves because I don't really want to hear why you feel so bigoted and felt it was funny to platform it and perpetuate and uphold all these different forms of oppression. I don't need to hear the other side because I've seen it for myself. So I feel like for my content in particular, I like to describe mine as like it's a real one-way street on my platform. Like, I see what you say. I don't give you a chance to defend yourself. I make fun of you publicly, and since we're all joking, let's all laugh together. I love to laugh.
So I guess my question is, we love to laugh too. Is it working? Like, I know it's working for you professionally.
Yeah.
And you built an amazing following. You're among the people on TikTok with the most followers. I mean, what, 8 million at this point? Is it working, do you think, to make the space safer, to make the platform safer? Like, does it deter these guys?
Yeah, to an extent, yes, for sure. I at one point, I felt like I did too good of a job of cleaning up the streets of TikTok because I couldn't find anybody. But I don't think it necessarily gets rid of it entirely. I don't think that I could never have that kind of impact. I think what it does is it instills a very real fear that other people who sit lower on the oppression ladder experience every single day, not just on social media. So they experience that all the time. That fear is very real of being attacked. And so the men that I choose to stitch have never felt that way before. Now it's instilled a fear in them. If you do it, there is a chance I will find it and I will talk about it. So they have to decide for themselves whether or not that's worth the risk. And some of them decide it is, and some of them decide it isn't. So I would say it definitely has made a difference. I wouldn't say it's gotten rid of it entirely. I mean, I think that would be crass of me to take credit for getting rid of misogyny because that's not true by any stretch.
Oh, it's still out there.
Yeah, for sure it is.
Sorry.
And I think my bigger goal, though, is not necessarily to get them to stop. It's to empower all the people that they hurt all the time.
Well, this is where I want to come to, because people come up to you, right, listeners, and people who don't have the voice that you do, and I'm sure they're grateful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that, like the feedback you get from just, I hate to say normal people, but people who don't have platforms. Like,
I mean, it's one of the few things that makes me emotional, like when it comes to my TikTok journey. But it's also one of the few things that makes it worth it because, you know, I laugh and joke all the time about, you know, getting hate from men because it is true. It's silly in a very superficial way. But in a very real way, there's a very real danger that has come with me doing this for a living. Like, it's posed a very real threat to me and my family.
You're talking about security.
Yeah. Overall. Because, you know, when bigots are bigots, they get so angry that sometimes they want to kill you because they see your content. So it has posed a very real threat to me and my family in a lot of ways. I've taken extensive precautions and measures to protect myself and my family, but it is a risk I had to make peace with. So, you know, when I hear testimonies from people who have used my content in a very real way, like they've put it into their lives in a way that has made a huge difference for them, it makes it worth it. I like those kinds of stories so dearly when I feel like I can't do it anymore, because it does get really hard at certain points, dealing with the very specific niche that I find myself in. So, I mean, I've heard many different stories, like from women who are in their 50s who got a divorce because they've been watching my content. I've heard testimonies from trans women who told me my content kept them on this earth longer than they planned to be. So I've heard many different stories that have made me very aware and confident that it is impacting in a very positive way.
You realize the power of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drew, this is Bloomberg. We follow the money. We want to know about the money.
So where do you think the 10-year yield is going to go? No, just kidding.
You know, you came here with, it's not just you. You have a team. And I mean, like, a team of people. I'm looking at it right now. It's like
we're going to take a picture afterwards.
This is your full-time job.
Yes.
Talk to me about, you know, the money behind this, the brand deals that you have.
Sure.
Please share some numbers if you can.
CEO of you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have a pretty extensive team as of right now. I have an agent, I have a manager, I have a lawyer, I have 3 publicists. I have a stylist. I have a hair and makeup artist. I actually have 2 managers. Yeah, 2 managers. And, you know, the list goes on. I have lots of, like, I work with people at Spotify. I work with people on my book. I've, like, you know, very, very expansive team. Which I think it takes a village, right, to run something like this. I could never do any, like, even half of the things I have done just by myself. So I'm very grateful for a team. But yeah, I'm very lucky to have worked with many different brands that I admire.
But a team is expensive.
Yes, yeah, for sure. I mean, they're expensive, but it's all about, I think, what's worth it to you, right? So the only way I get bigger opportunity is by hiring experts. And I'm not too proud to admit that I don't know everything about this business. So, yeah, I mean, sorry.
It's like they're listening. No, they are. Just 30 seconds, when you think about working with a brand, what's got to be top of mind? Is it about the financial composition of it, or is it also who they are? Just really quickly.
I mean, I think finances play a huge role for sure. Obviously, I'm a business, and I have to remember that we're a business. But at the same time, I think as long as their ethos matches mine and they understand my platform and agree with it and feel empowered by it or feel like it needs to be spread even larger, I think that's really all I focus on.
Well, congratulations, and for willing to make the fight for people who don't have a voice out there.
Thank you so much.
It's really cool stuff.
Thank you.
Drew Afwalo, TikTok creator, of course, and content creator, I should say, and host of the comment section, joining us here at Bloomberg Screen Time.
Hey, let's go from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. now. We're going to get a check on the latest world and national news. We got Nancy Lyons in the Bloomberg 99.1 newsroom in the nation's capital. Hey, Nance.
Thanks, Tim. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in the Middle East, where he has been pledging unwavering U.S. support for Israel during his meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But as Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Hordern reports, Blinken also emphasized Israel must follow the rules of war as it fights back against Hamas.
He says how Israel does this matters. And he says we democracies need to make sure we hold ourselves to those standards, not the standards that terrorists hold themselves to.
Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Hordern reporting more than 2,500 people have been killed since the war with Hamas began. That number now includes 27 Americans. President Biden is focusing back on the economy this afternoon as he meets with corporate CEOs. Bloomberg Government's Jack Fitzpatrick with more on the purpose of the gathering.
He will focus on some of the legislative achievements, the infrastructure bill, that kind of thing, and how they're implementing them with some high-profile people from IBM, a former American Express chair, a number of large companies, and try to turn that toward how they're implementing the agenda with some of the major bills that he got through Congress.
Bloomberg Government's Jack Fitzpatrick in Washington. That White House meeting is set for about 4:30 this afternoon, Wall Street time. Well, there are still some struggles on the labor front. Negotiations have been suspended between the Hollywood actors and studios. The industry says a viewership bonus that the Actors Union wants would cost more than $800 million a year, but the actors say that is an exaggeration of about 60%. And the United Auto Workers strike is ramping up. About 8,700 workers at Ford's Kentucky truck plant walked off the job last night. That factory alone generates about $25 billion in revenue every year. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It's 3:40 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, Russell 2000, all in the red. S&P halting a 4-day advance, but let's head right over to the first word breaking news desk. Lots going on, and here he is with today's afternoon call, Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. U.S. stocks are under pressure after the 30-year bond auction tailed at the highest yield since 2007, but they are trading off their lows. The Dow is currently down 148 points, was down 349. NASDAQ is off by 78, and the S&P 500 is down by 25. The U.S. 10-year yield at 4.7%. Gold is down 5. Oil is little change, and Bitcoin is down by 0.2%. Among the main 11 S&P sectors, only energy and tech were in the green. Utilities and consumer staples were under pressure, and leaders to the upside in the Dow, Walgreens and Amgen, while Verizon and Coca-Cola each fell 2% and led to the downside. After earnings, Delta fell 2.6%, while Domino's dropped 1.4%, and regarding yesterday's IPO, Birkenstock fell 6%. In other news, Ford says they have reached our limit on their economic offer to the UAW. And wrapping things up, Hormel Foods fell as much as 11% to its lowest level since 2018. Live from the first breaking news desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
Okay, we thank you very much, Bill Maloney, and to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg. Type Squawk, S-Q-U-A, on your Bloomberg terminal. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no. Who's gonna drive you home? Honey, please, I'll do the driving. Drive on. Excuse me, I want to drive.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the Drive to the Close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
All right, everybody, just got under 18 minutes left in today's trading session. You are listening and watching Bloomberg Business Week live on the West Coast at Bloomberg Screen Time. Tim Stenovic and Carol Massey here.
That's me.
That is you. What a fun conversation with Drew Afwalo.
Yeah, it was really good.
Really cool stuff.
Hey, you know who else is on the West Coast? Russ Gerber.
Russ Gerber.
He's president and CEO of the Santa Monica-based Gerber Kawasaki Wealth and Investment Management. They've got about $2.3 billion in assets under management. They've also got an actively managed advisor shares Gerber Kawasaki ETF. It's been around for a couple of years. It's got a market cap of about $17 million. Ross joins us this afternoon from Santa Monica. Ross, how are you?
I'm good. I heard you're in LA and you didn't come by and say hi.
I know. And, I was in Santa Monica last night. It's beautiful. But, next time we're here, come visit us in person.
I will.
Talk to us about the market environment and what's interesting for you at this point. Is it a little bit challenging?
Yes and no. I actually like this environment because I think the Fed has well overdone it. So, we're seeing peak rates in here, and we haven't seen the economy roll over. The economy continues to be strong, and so we're expecting a much better than expected earnings report for Q3 here. And then as we move into Q4, once again, I think the economy is pretty solid here. So, if the Fed really gives us more clarity in backing away from this constantly rising interest rate, bearish, hawkish talk, I think it will really be a great potential environment for the economy going into next year. So, I'm bullish. I like this. It's a 1-year anniversary of when the bull market started, technically. We're up nicely since then, and I expect that to continue over the next couple of years.
Yeah, but Ross, you said that the Fed, you think, has overdone it. I mean, do you think they've overdone it to the extent that something out there is going to break?
Well, the biggest risk to me is commercial real estate and who owns the debt on commercial real estate, because that, has a secular change with offices not being very popular among the youth, on top of a tremendous amount of overbuilding and leverage. So, as bonds mature, with interest rates up 2 to 3% and need to be refinanced, especially in the real estate sector now at 8, 9, 10% rates, I mean, these will all go into default. So the damage the Fed has done hasn't actually been felt yet in the economy. It's going to take years because they froze the real estate market with such a rapid increase in rates. And so we really won't know how much damage and who will really fall. But we've seen it in companies like Hudson Pacific Properties, which owns a lot of real estate here in LA, and the stock's down, 75, 80%, really being in commercial real estate. So, I think the Fed's caused a lot of damage to the economy, and it'll take years to fix it.
Ross, something we always talk a lot about is Tesla with you. I believe it's still the top holding in your fund. And we've talked about the car itself. We've talked about the individual, Elon Musk, of course, behind Tesla. And we've talked about the company. And I'm assuming you still like it. You like the car. What was interesting here at Screen Time, we're walking into the event, and it's kind of a whole experience. And as you walk in, you're passing some really cool cars, and that includes some other EVs, like the BMW EV. And it's just a reminder that, a few years ago, Elon kind of had this space, certainly the high-end EV space, to himself. It's a different game today. What changes your mind, if anything, ultimately, about the company and the car?
Well, to start off with what you started with, I 100% agree. Even my partners here at GK have diversified. So one of my partners has the i7 and another one has a Rivian now. And so we park next to each other, my Plaid next to the i7, next to the Rivian. I think it's the RS one. And they're all great cars, Like, I really like the Rivians. And in LA, the Rivian is becoming like what Tesla was, as like the cool higher end car to own. And Teslas, I think, are now priced the same price as Priuses. And I think people look at the Model Y much more like a normal, like, Prius kind of car, which is good and bad, for Tesla's brand. So, as Tesla moves forward, they have to accept that the competition actually exists now and is pretty good. And it is affecting their sales. I don't think there's any doubt.
But you still think it's worth owning. It's obviously a big holding. You're still in for the long run?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one must look at Tesla as the whole. So we're going to sell almost 2 million EVs this year, and we're going to launch the Cybertruck hopefully any day. And the Cybertruck will be, an incredibly impactful vehicle, and also help sell other Teslas as well. So we will see an increase in production going into next year. And then the three other businesses that Tesla, I'm super excited about, one being charging. They are the dominant player in charging. There is nobody even close to them in charging, and they will have probably a monopoly on charging in this country, maybe globally. Then you have energy storage, which is like this massive opportunity, and it's been super helpful in LA and Texas, for example, and California have had, benefits from putting in battery storage and keeping our grid, solid during a really hot summer. And then the third is full self-driving, which, actually yesterday I saw a Waymo car driving next to me with no driver. And that's the first time I've seen a Waymo car not having a driver in Santa Monica, in heavy traffic area where I use full self-driving. And I was actually fairly impressed that it was doing this because, quite frankly, it's dangerous. There's a lot of people around, a lot of kids walking around. So, full self-driving
maybe it got
is
lost on its way, from the Bay. Yeah, maybe it got lost on the way from the Bay. Hey,
I don't know.
Hey,
I
Ross,
mean, it was driving
just
pretty
want to
well,
check in about
honestly. So, yeah, I think full self-driving
Did you
is a
get
real
closer,
thing.
or did you move away?
No, I got
or move
closer.
away
I
from it,
wanted to like watch it work through. It was like I was right by the pier where it's like kind of crazy. So, but I was turning, so I didn't get to actually see it navigate through some difficult stuff. But it did. Nobody got run over. So full self-driving is coming, whether it be Waymo or Tesla. A lot of people think this is much farther away than it really is, but it's not.
Hey, Ross, we only have about 30 seconds left, but just give me some comments on the ETF, which you came on our program a couple years ago when you launched it. I was surprised to see it's only got about $17 million in assets in it right now. What's holding you back from bringing more in?
Well, we started at the top of the market, so that was no great timing, thing, which is really typical, actually, starting ETFs, because everybody wants you to do it when you're at the top of your game, right? And then we went through a very difficult year, so our performance kind of sucked in year one. In our second year, we sort of started really making back funds, and moving forward into this calendar year, we've had a pretty good year. So I think we just need growth back, and people will invest in the ETF,
Yeah, so appreciate it. Listen, Ross Gerber, thank you so much. Yeah, the fund is up about 13% so far here in 2023. This is Bloomberg.
Your company news headlines on Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Netflix plans to open new destinations where fans can immerse themselves in the worlds of their favorite TV shows, shop for clothing, eat themed food, and maybe even try that Squid Game obstacle course. It is dubbed Netflix House, and the venues will feature a mix of retail, dining, and live experiences. The streaming TV pioneer plans to open the first two in the U.S. in 2025 and then expand the concept around the world. The biggest American banks are poised to write off more bad loans than they have had since the early days of the pandemic, as higher for longer rates and a potential economic downturn are putting borrowers in a bind. With a look ahead to tomorrow's big bank earnings, here's Bloomberg's Sonali Basak.
Credit quality is starting to turn at the biggest of the U.S. banks. There's an expected more than $5 billion worth of write-downs expected in terms of consumer loans at J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup alone that are starting tomorrow. That is the biggest level of write-downs since the heat of the global pandemic, 2020.
And that's Bloomberg Shanali Bassick. JP Morgan Chase shares down right now by 0.1%. Citigroup shares also down 0.1%. Wells Fargo ahead of earnings tomorrow, up by 0.2%. Bank of America, by the way, on Tuesday. Among the companies out with earnings today, we did hear from Walgreens Boots Alliance, and that stock up now by 6.8%. Also reporting this morning, we heard from Delta. Delta shares down by 2.5%. And those are some of our top company stories at this hour. I'm Charlie Pelletin. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Messer and Tim Stenevec on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, everybody, you are listening and watching Bloomberg Business Week live at Bloomberg Screen Time here on the West Coast. We're going to get back to some fun conversations from.
We're in Hollywood.
We are in Hollywood.
Feels like it too.
It does feel like it. It's really lovely, the weather.
It's nice. It's all it's always lovely here.
It's always lovely.
As a Californian, I can tell you, the secret's out.
Right, it gets warm. It's really lovely. Then it cools down a little bit at night. It's just perfection.
There's a reason why a lot of people live here.
We're going to talk more about that. Meanwhile, we do want to mention some stories that caught our attention, and I think it's interesting. It has to do with Manhattan apartments.
Yeah. Maybe people are moving to California.
It's interesting because there's a lot of building and development going on around where we are right now, and there's actually a building, a couple of them right across from me. And when I was getting into my hotel room, the gentleman who helped me with my luggage and stuff, he's like, these buildings didn't used to be here. They've all been come up, but he's like, that building's completely empty. That one's not. So it was interesting to see.
Commercial and residential?
This was residential.
Okay,
largely
interesting.
residential. This is a story about Manhattan apartments.
Yeah, we talk month after month about Manhattan rents going up. Well, they're actually softening just a little bit. The rental market softened in September as prices fell from their summer peak and apartment vacancies rose. Don't get too excited, Carol. I heard Matt and Paul were quizzing each other on the program earlier today.
About what they're paying for what? Or what?
Well, just guess what the median Manhattan rent is.
Okay, well, I kind of cheated.
Oh, you cheated, okay.
But I always know when we talk about New York numbers and we're like, okay, that's, or sometimes we'll be like, oh, that's
$4,350, down 1.1% from a record high that was set in July and sustained in August. Here's what's interesting. The folks who did this data, Jonathan Miller, president of Miller Samuel, we talk about him at least once a month when this data comes out.
We do.
He said he's anticipating a weaker rental market going forward, but only in the sense of moving sideways or modest declines rather than some sort of correction.
So they're not falling off a cliff?
No, down 1.1% after going up for so many months in a row.
Yeah, the rental market's been really tough. We talk about affordability of actually buying, but people have also just talked about rents have been so problematic as well. So something we continue to track.
The rent is too damn high. Have you heard that before?
The rent is too damn high. Yeah, I've also heard mortgage interests are too high.
That's what John Tucker said on the show earlier today. He said the rent is like 3 times his mortgage.
Yeah.
He said he's never moving.
Well,
he's part of the problem.
I know, we know. He's never, ever moving. All right, stick around, folks. We're going to talk electronic arts. We're going to talk gaming. I've got a great guest on that coming up, and also Sundance and their festival.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It's 3:58 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. We have got 2 minutes to go until that closing bell clangs on Wall Street, with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all in the red ahead of the close. Stocks fell, Treasury yields rose as data bolstered speculation that the Fed is nowhere near declaring victory over inflation, with bets on another hike back to coin flip territory. 10-year yield 4.70%, with a 2-year at 5.06%. Spot gold $18.64 the ounce, down by 0.3%. Gold down almost $6 the ounce today. We've got Bitcoin trading lower, little change, down $6 at 26,710 on Bitcoin. And West Texas Intermediate crude, we'll call it unchanged on the day, 85.52 for a barrel of West Texas Intermediate crude. Brent, the global benchmark, up 0.7%, 86.40 for a barrel of WTI. Bank shares among your underperformers today ahead of results from JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and Wells Fargo tomorrow, which will be kicking off their earnings season. Treasuries dropped across the curve, the 30-year rate surging as much as 18 basis points after a $20 billion auction of the securities drew weak demand. So heading into the closing bell, we've got the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all in the red, with the S&P 500 index halting a 4-day advance. So there you have it, sound of the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange. S&P at the close, down 26, drop there of 0.6%. Dow Jones Industrial Average, down 173, decline there of 0.5%. And NASDAQ lower by 85, a drop there of 0.6%. After earnings, shares of Walgreens Boots Alliance up 7% today. Delta after earnings down by 2.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. You are listening and watching Bloomberg Business Week. We're live at Bloomberg Screen Time on the West Coast. We're talking about, what's going on in terms of content, where it's being created. We're going to get back to some of those conversations. We, of course, are on YouTube, Bloomberg Originals, and on Bloomberg Radio. Having said that, in terms of some of the conversations we're going to have, gaming is such a big part of content creation. And Laura Miele is president of entertainment and technology over at Electronic Arts. We're talking about EA. We're going to talk about how they are, after a long-term relationship, moving on
3 decades
and doing their own thing.
Yeah, we're going to look forward to that conversation in just a few minutes. Also, live from Screen Time here in Hollywood, California, we got Sundance CEO Joanna Vicente on the state of independent films here in the U.S. and everything they do at Sundance outside of the festival to foster creatives.
Right, a lot of things that they're doing. And then we're going to get into, speaking of content and branding, Bloomberg Business Week is expanding its reach in terms of content creation. So we're going to get into a new weekly broadcast that's on our streaming service. Having said that, we do want to get back to the trade for a moment, if we may. Charlie, of course, breaking down those closing numbers on this Thursday. Right now with us is Bloomberg News Markets reporter Abigail Doolittle back at our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. A lot coming at investors right now. Abigail, what stood out for you in today's trade?
The bearish reversal, Carol. We started off relatively not doing all that much at all. A little bit higher, a little bit lower, a little bit higher, a little bit lower. That CPI print coming in just a little bit hotter than expected. I think maybe the trend of 2 months above was maybe what shook investors a little bit. But even there wasn't too much of a reaction to that. And then mid-afternoon or thereabouts, we started to see a sell-off, really. And it was led by the equal weight S&P 500 index. It was led by the Russell 2000. It was led by the Dow Transports. It was led by the banks. It was basically led by everything but that Magnificent Seven. And this is troubling from the standpoint that if you take a look at the Russell 2000 technicals, this index is really breaking down. It's now down well more than 10% from its July peak. It's in a correction. And it's sharply below its 200-day moving average. Tomorrow, the Russell 2000, it will either be tomorrow or next Monday morning, will open up in a quote-unquote death cross. This is when the 50-day moving average crosses below the 200-day moving average. That's a fancy way of saying that all buyers over all time periods are disappearing and that the sellers are stepping up and that the long-term buyers are disappearing from small cap support. That is really something to think about. Those are your growthier companies. Those are the more domestically based companies. But the other thing is the Russell 2000 traditionally has led ahead of time in some pretty steep bear markets. So it could be seen as a tell for further trouble for the broader markets.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about, really, Abigail, is what this means for the S&P 500, especially at a point where, gosh, we're up, 150 points from just last week.
Yeah, so the last couple of days have been impressive, and it happened mid-Thursday, I think, where there was just a little bit of a reversal in terms of the way that folks were interpreting data. I think a little bit of it was in the near term, conditions might have been slightly oversold, and then we, of course, have had yields down a little bit over the last few days, and for that reason, taking pressure off of stocks. So I'm taking a look at the S&P 500 right now. Now, it did put in a nice test of the 200-day moving average. So those long-term buyers that are not supporting small cap stocks right now, they are supporting this broader large cap index. which is in and of itself at least neutral to positive. However, if you take a look at the fact that we have a set of higher lows coming off of the July highs, that means that each time that the bulls have taken stocks higher in terms of what could be seen as a mini buy the dip moment, they're less confident each time. They're not willing to take the index higher. Now, does that reflect rising rates? Does that reflect the possibility of a recession? Does that now reflect geopolitical tensions? It's hard to know, but all of the indexes are hitting up against that resistance, sellers.
But those nuances are always smart, Abigail, in terms of helping us figure out where we go from here. So appreciate you wrapping up the day of trading. Abigail Doolittle back in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. This is Bloomberg.
Games people play, night or day, they're just not matching what they should do.
All right, we're going to talk now about the gaming industry because over the summer, gaming giant Electronic Arts, EA, split into two as part of a restructuring. So they divided the company into EA Sports, EA Games. It really speaks to the growing content worlds and demands of both sports and gaming. There's a lot that they are doing on both fronts.
Yeah, we got a great guest with us this afternoon. Laura Miles, president of entertainment and technology at the $35 billion market cap and gaming giant EA, who also might know it as Electronic Arts. She knows this company well. She was the former COO and Chief Studios Officer of EA as well. She's with us right now at the Bloomberg Screen Time event here in Los Angeles. We're in sunny Hollywood. How are you?
I'm great. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
What a great event.
It is.
Well, what do you get out of something like this?
I love the cross-section of technology, media, and then just the conversations that are happening. So the presentations are awesome, but the richness comes from the, getting a cup of coffee and having interaction and exchange with people. I just did a talk about gaming, and it was great to hear people from nonprofits that are very passionate about education and how gaming can contribute to that. And I don't know if I would have had that. I don't know if I could have organized that or have, planned that conversation. So it's great. It's great to be here.
It's so funny. It's a very Bloomberg-ish kind of thing where we all kind of have to run into each. We don't have to, but we just do. But it's amazing that you're like, oh, I didn't know you were doing that. Like maybe
the happy accidents, right? Yeah, it's great.
Happy accidents. Tell us about your world and when you were thinking about. Actually, let's go to the big story. Let's talk about soccer.
Okay.
Can we go there first?
Sure.
In terms of this long-term relationship that you guys have with FIFA, and now you're doing your own thing. Was that a complicated, difficult switch to do?
It's been years in the making, and it was such a great time for us, given shifts that we're seeing in the industry, shifts we're seeing in technology. It was a moment for us to say, hey, gosh, can we really create our own brand? And EA Sports Football Club is the idea and concept of it is such an inclusive idea for players and partnerships we have with clubs. We have 19,000 athletes in the game, and so it's remarkable. And where the industry is headed is you think about games now as platforms. And you have, in the case of EA Sports FC, we have a mobile game, we have online game in Asia, we have the HD premium game, and they're all about this big ecosystem, hundreds of millions of players in this, and they play multiple versions of the game, and they socially connect, and they create together, and they watch games together, and so that's really the future and what we're seeing in the industry. And when we think about Electronic Arts, we also have Battlefield and The Sims and Apex and Skate. And so you apply this model of this connected ecosystem, these massive online communities. We see that that's a really important direction for our growth and where we're headed.
But this game, FIFA is legendary. One of the best-selling series in the world, more than 375 million copies sold, versions in 20 different languages. And for people who are just catching up, and there's a great article in this week's edition of Bloomberg Business Week, EA and FIFA were not able to come to a licensing agreement. So this year, it's not called FIFA anymore. It's called EA Sports FC 24. How do you make sure that consumers of the game, people who are new to it as well, know that this is the next iteration of what last year was called FIFA?
Are they already?
Well, we launched EA Sports FC 24 a few weeks ago, and we are so thrilled with the reception of the game. And keep in mind, the game is everything that it was. Again, we have 19,000 athletes, over 300 clubs and partnerships. So when players in Liverpool show up, their club is there, their athletes are there, and that's what's really meaningful to them. That was super important that we maintain that integrity of the experience. And so, and we were also able to innovate in the game with some really great technology and really realistic soccer experiences and animation and with the players. And so I think
it's amazing when you guys get so specific on details in terms of whether it's how their shorts move. Like I know our story in Bloomberg Business Week talks about it, but it does say something about the attention to detail, so that when somebody is playing, it's like being at a real.
It's about realism,
right?
and having that expression. And I am a soccer player on the pitch, and so I think that's what players really look for. So yeah, we're really proud of where it's landed, how the game is received by players right now, and where we're headed. That's the exciting thing. Again, these connected communities are massive.
So what do you do with that? Because, when we talk about connected communities, I think we go to the traditional social world, right? And we think about those communities, better or worse. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that community and what's the power of it and where else you can go with it.
Mm-hmm. The idea about play, clearly games are about play, competing and playing games, right? And as we continue to think about our design and our innovation, we really want to extend the modality of experiences for players. So creation in games is also significant right now, really big. Creating your own objects, creating your own modes so your friends can come play. And then the next modality is watching that. And so people can record and create short form videos and then broadcast that. And then to your point, the social connection around all of that is what is really meaningful. And that's the flywheel multiplier effect of engagement. We have people spend billions of hours in our games every year. It's remarkable how much time people spend with us. We'll launch a game and they can come back and play it every day over a whole course of a year. We used to launch 20, 30 games a year. We launch maybe 7 or 8 now, but we launch 400 to 500 live service updates a year. And so we're there for players with events and seasons and content and just keeping the game alive. And to your question about social engagement, having those components, having those events, and having those shared experiences is super important for the social engagement.
To keep going back.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Saying, okay, now what's new or what's going on?
Where's the growth happening for EA right now? Is it with the same people buying more games, playing these games more, or are you successfully bringing more people into gaming?
It's both, I would say. So first, really meeting the Gen Z, Gen Alpha motivation and need through creation, through self-expression, through sharing content, and then that social connection around. That's super important for us to hit that key motivation of that generation of those players. And then I would say that players as well spending more time in our games is also another area of growth for us. So we look at, continue to expand our TAM, having, bringing new players into experiences, whether it be through new gameplay modes, new brands, new franchises. Apex has been a huge success for us, and that's been a great game for younger players. And then just having more content for players. Our Sims game, Sims 4 right now, is about 10 years old. And we continue to put out content. People just continue to spend even more and more time. So new players, larger addressable markets, and then just more time in the games are really critical.
All right, this may be a little weird, but, coming off of Barbie.
Go there.
And I know that's been a big conversation here. But I do think, folks are saying, nobody would have thought. They've talked about a Barbie movie forever. It finally happened, and it was a really huge success. And so I think anybody who owns any kind of toy property is like rethinking. So how do you guys think about, okay, now where's another avenue that could be a great content creator for gaming? Where do you go? What do you look for? What kind of trending or, innovators or TikTokers? Like, who is it or what is it that you look at?
Well, the beautiful thing about where we are right now as an industry is that as we look to our players, I mean, again, this idea about creative self-expression and creating sandboxes and tools and frameworks for them to create experiences, I think it's been phenomenal to see what people create and how they engage with our tools and our worlds. And so we've been inspired by... You
could just keep kind of playing that out.
Yes, completely. We're super inspired by how people think about things and, in ways that are very unexpected and how they engage and interact in our world.
Microsoft is trying to pull off a huge acquisition of Activision Blizzard.
Oh, I don't know if that's
happening in your world. So what does that mean for you, being sort of among the last, quote unquote, independent, publicly traded game studios if this deal goes through?
Not like we're like a lawyer or an M&A team.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's, well, first of all, I think it's amazing, actually. This will be one of the largest tech acquisitions in the U.S. history, I believe. And the fact that it's about gaming is remarkable to me. And it just punctuates the significance of our sector and what gaming is to technology and media and entertainment. So I think it is I just think it's interesting and really positive for the perception of.
But what about your relationship with Microsoft then? What happens?
We will maintain a strong partnership with them. They're an important partner to us. They have a meaningful platform, and of course they have PC as well. And so we will maintain a strong partnership.
No concerns.
No concerns. I mean, I think it seems like all the things they've gone through to get to this point.
The government's concerned.
Exactly.
Several different governments are concerned.
They are, and there seem to be a lot of things they're putting in place.
But like a lot of the technology world, right? It's complicated.
Yes.
Like these relationships, and
Yes.
yet you have them, but you compete, and that's just the way
true.
of the world, right?
And it has been that way. And to your point, it is getting more complicated. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But again, it's fascinating to see where gaming is going to go in entertainment and the role that gaming can have. I mean, again, the engagement model that we have relative to linear content or for streaming, I think that the bundling of content in the future is going to be meaningful partnerships that we can have with media and entertainment companies and technology companies in the future.
So lots of conversations.
Oh, but there always have been, right? There always have been partnership conversations. And I would also tell you that making games is really hard, as evidenced by several large companies that have invested billions of dollars and have tried. And
You could do it, but you do it really well.
you have to do it really well. We've been in business for 40 years, and it is. I think it's the highest form of entertainment and media that exists, and so it's very complicated and very hard to make great games. So yes, there is interest in.
Can you just dig a little bit into that? Because the
industry.
Bloomberg story in the magazine kind of gets into that, like just creating, whether it's face or the shorts moving like you would expect it to do. I mean, can take a long time, right?
Yes.
With coders and so on and so forth, like to figure
And
it out.
the iterations of it,
Iterations?
yes, and game engines. And AI is going to play a pretty meaningful role for us in content creation.
How so?
The way that we're looking at it, so AI has always been part of our company. I mean, if you go back even 1988, Madden had 22 players on, little AI players on the field. So we are an AI native entertainment company. And always have been. And we're looking at AI in a way of optimizing what we currently have. So we know that AI can optimize tools and workflows for our developers and so our players as well as they're creating things. And then also AI is going to help us expand content. So we talked about there are 3.4 billion players in the world. On average, they spend 4 to 5 hours a week with us. And so you could have all developers in the planet and not develop all the content and meet all the demand that exists. And so AI, I think, is going to play a meaningful role to help our creators expand content and creation. And then, of course, it can be very transformational.
Can I ask you, who's a typical gamer? Because it's massive, and the amount of time people are spending on your platform. Who is your, I hate to say average gamer, but who is your typical gamer?
Well, I love this question because of 3.4 billion gamers by the end of this year that we project, close to 50% are women.
That's what I had.
And so I love that. And mobile devices are incredibly significant. I mean, there are mobile devices everywhere in the world, so we can reach all corners of the world. So that's the beautiful thing about it. I don't know if there is a typical gamer. And that's
age. Is there a typical age?
No. I mean, you have people that are Gen Xers that played games. They play a significant amount of console games. So you may have Gen Alpha, Gen Z playing on PC and mobile. So it's quite. It's an incredible place to be.
What is your favorite game that is not made by EA?
World of Warcraft. As I played many years.
Yes. Okay. What is your favorite game that is made by EA?
Command and Conquer: Red Alert.
That's amazing. You are allowed to have favorite children.
Do you play a lot?
I love this.
A lot?
I do. I play less probably than I have, but I play a lot of mobile games now because they're so accessible. I travel a lot, and so it's great too.
And plus, it's working when you're playing games.
And it's working.
It's
research.
It's
research. R&D.
Exactly.
Really interesting stuff. So love it, and thank you for finding some time for us. I know it's been busy.
Thank you for having me. This is really fun.
Laura, so appreciate it.
Yes.
Laura Miele, she is president of Entertainment and Technology. Did I say the name right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, we like to get it right. Of course, at Electronic Arts, joining us here on Bloomberg Business Week. I'm Carol Massar, along.
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It's 421 on Wall Street. A move lower today for the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ. We do check markets all day long here on Bloomberg. The big decliner, though, the Russell 2000. It was down today by 2.2%. To put that in context, S&P down 27 points, a drop there of 0.6%. S&P 500 halted a 4-day advance. The Dow was down 171 points, drop there of 0.5%. NASDAQ down 85, a decline of 0.6%. 10-year yield 4.69%, with a 2-year 5.06%. Gold 18.68 the ounce, down by about 0.4%. And West Texas Intermediate crude, little changed, up 4 cents, 83.53 for a barrel of WTI. Stocks fell, Treasury yields rose as data bolstered speculation that the Federal Reserve is nowhere near declaring victory over inflation, with bets on another hike coming up perhaps this year. We've got Walgreens Boots Alliance today rallying by about 7%. It did announce a $1 billion cost-cutting program as it prepares to reset its growth strategy under a new CEO. Delta Airlines reported quarterly earnings this morning that beat analyst estimates, but the carrier cut the high end of its outlook for 2023 profit on rising fuel prices and larger than expected aircraft maintenance costs. Today, Delta Airlines declined by 2.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening and watching Bloomberg Business Week. I'm Carol Masser, along with Tim Stanovic, and we are live at the Screen Time event here on the West Coast and getting ready for our next guest.
She's just stepping off a panel here in LA.
We'd like to get her some water. Ed Ludlow.
Oh, hey, Ed. Ed's taking a picture of us.
Can you get our guest some water? We're just on air. Would you mind? Because it's a little... No,
this is great. This is great, Ed.
She's just coming off a panel. You're so welcome. Okay, we got some... Okay, we got it.
We're good, Ed. We're good.
Thank you. It's live, guys, and this is how it happens. And she's no stranger to it because she's been in this world for a long time. Joanna Vicente, am I saying it right?
Yes.
No, I'm not. I didn't.
No, you said it.
Okay. She's the CEO of the nonprofit Sundance Institute. You know them well, and she just came off a panel. It was called Investing in Independent Voices, and we heard the clapping. So we're so delighted to have you here. How are you?
I'm good. That was an exciting conversation. It was great to be in dialogue and have different people present their perspectives.
Well, tell us what you heard, and what is it that jumped out for you?
I think, it was interesting because we were asking about the question of like, is art the same as content? Is the film industry and TV industry, is it the content industry? What does it mean to talk about content? And it was interesting to, that there's been some articles about it and conversation, does it dilute what artists and creators do?
Yeah.
In the more true sense of the word, in terms of like the directors and the writers. And if everyone makes content, is it all the same?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also know that things evolve, that everyone is creating experiences that are resonating. So how do we protect?
Comes at it differently, right?
Yeah.
Too.
Well, how do you do this in a way that, if somebody's watching something on their iPhone that's meant to be watched in a theater with Dolby surround sound, you are able to still express yourself as an artist, or these artists are still able to express themselves? I think about like Top Gun or something. People watch that on an airplane. It's not where it's supposed to be watched.
Exactly, but can you still enjoy the experience and engage? Yes.
Do you think you can? Do you think you can?
Not as
you would talk to some directors who say, no, you wouldn't be able to enjoy this on an airplane.
I'm sure that they would say that, and that the optimal way of seeing those films is in the big screen. I believe that nothing replaces that. There's something that is so immersive. But, people are watching things and multitasking and texting and seeing two screens at once. So how do we, I mean, we can embrace that's a form of entertainment, and that's a form that people are going to be consuming these stories that way, but preserving the art of filmmaking, preserving those moments of like immersive being in a theater together with others. I don't think anything replaces that. So for me, it's like, how do you balance really prioritizing that experience that really, speaks to what you said in terms of what filmmakers do and how they want people to experience their work, but at the same time acknowledge that consumers will do what is easy for them, and that's okay too. No judgment.
I have to say, sometimes like on a plane and I put on headphones or something and I'm kind of loving it. It feels really intimate and it's just me and the movie. Having said that, I want to get to your world at Sundance. We all know the film festival, and you guys, the Institute's been around for like 50 years or so. We know Robert Redford, right, folding it all in way back when. But how do you think about independent film making? You're a producer yourself. You've worked with really well-known producers and directors, I should say. The importance of independent artists to content creation. We just talked with Drew Afalo, of TikTok. She's an independent artist, and she's created this great narrative and talking about some difficult subjects. How do you think about the role of the independent?
I mean, independent filmmakers, I think, are absolutely essential. I think it gives you a more, the access to different stories that maybe you wouldn't listen to or be aware of in more mainstream kind of films and TV shows. So I think to create a space for those artists who have very, unique lived experiences, who have unique visions, who are going to kind of push the envelope. I mean, they're creating works that engage at a deeper level. And I think that's what art does. It's really, those are the things that you watch and that make you think and stay with you. I think for me, the difference with content is that it's more immediate. So you experience, and it's fun, it's great, it's interesting, it's informative. But does it stay with you? Does it resonate at a deeper level where it actually might question how you perceive a certain subject, or how, does it open your, kind of your world? And to me, that's what art does. And I think independent storytelling is always about stories that push the envelope, that are not part of the mainstream.
Right.
Then those artists go on to, look at Greta Gerwig or Chris Nolan, or Ryan Coogler.
Who were independent artists,
They
right?
were independent. They all got their start in the independent film. And the same for actors.
Well, Joanna, just this week, talks have been suspended between striking actors and studios. I'm wondering about the writer's strike that is resolved, and the actor's strike that is not resolved, how it affects your world.
We're hoping that we'll find a way to resolve this soon. We're absolutely, we're in solidarity with the actors. We understand that there are important issues to solve. Obviously, we are supported by the system and by the studios as well. So we really hope that they come to the table and they find a solution. Festivals, there have been the fall festivals have had to deal with the fact that they might not have the talent to, support the films and promote the films. So it's been a bit different, but also there's good positive steps. We see audiences coming back, even if they knew that maybe they didn't have all of the amazing, shining talent introduced to films. I think people are coming back to those in-person experiences.
Barbie and Oppenheimer have done pretty well, right?
Really well.
Are independent artists, because as you say, they come to this and content creation maybe with a unique voice, a different voice, right? And maybe you're telling tales that weren't being told before. Are they as worried then about artificial intelligence?
I think we all need to be worried about artificial intelligence, in that we need to protect the jobs. We need to protect the IP. We need to protect what is, a product of the creativity of writers and directors and so many people working in the field. At the same time, if it is used as a tool, I think it can be amazing. I mean, there's enormous possibility. In a way, it continues to democratize the tools of production.
That's interesting.
You know,
it's a great way of looking at it, right?
Yeah, there's this amazing filmmaker, Mexican filmmaker, low budget, sci-fi type of stories, very DIY, doing very low budget kinds of films. And now all of a sudden he's like creating these incredible worlds,
Wow.
and because probably would cost you a fortune to do that, and you would have to be working at Lucasfilms to be able to make those models. So all of a sudden in his, with his laptop, he's creating this conversation with AI where he's directing AI.
No, think about it. You've got leaner budgets, right? Maybe don't have the manpower or woman power, and so you think about how technology can help you in your mission in getting it done. Love your energy, love your optimism, and I love kind of sharing that different take on AI because I think everybody thinks it's going to be the end of us all.
Hopefully not the end of us.
To be continued, though. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Joanna Vicente, she is CEO of Sundance Institute, joining us here on Bloomberg Business Week.
Let's now get a check on the latest world and national news. We go from Hollywood, California to the 99.1 newsroom in Washington, D.C., where we find Nancy Lyons. Hey, Nance.
Thanks, Tim. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on a diplomacy visit to the Middle East. He's been in Israel, where he assured Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that the U.S. fully supports Israel.
We encountered a nation knit together by grief, but also a nation united in resolve. The United States shares that resolve. We stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Israel.
Blinken is also making stops in other countries in hopes of mitigating any escalation. Nick Wadhams is Bloomberg's national security team leader.
He's going to 4 more countries, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. And obviously all 4 of those countries have different levels of influence on Hamas and Iran. What he's really trying to show there is that the U.S. wants to prevent this from becoming a wider war.
Bloomberg's Nick Wadhams speaking earlier on Bloomberg Sound On. There have been questions about $6 billion in oil revenue Iran was allowed to access under a recent prisoner exchange. A person familiar with the situation says the U.S. and Qatar have reached an informal understanding to hold off distributing that money while the U.S. looks into Tehran's potential involvement in last week's Hamas attack. Senator Bob Menendez is now facing a new charge in his federal corruption case.
A revised indictment alleges Senator Menendez conspired to act as an unregistered foreign agent for the Egyptian government. Prosecutors say the New Jersey Democrat and his wife took bribes in the form of cash, gold bars, and a luxury car from 3 businessmen who wanted Menendez to help influence foreign affairs. The couple pled not guilty last month to corruption charges. Menendez has dismissed calls from fellow Democrats to resign and plans to run for re-election next year. Steve Rappaport, Bloomberg Radio.
Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts.
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It's 4:40 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. S&P 500 halted a 4-day advance. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all declined today. The Russell 2000, though, was down 2.3% today. To put that in context, S&P down 27, a drop there of 0.6%. The Dow down 171 points, down by 0.5%. The NASDAQ Composite Index down 85, drop there of 0.6%. And again, the Russell 2000 index of small cap shares lower today by 2.2%. 10-year yield 4.69% with a 2-year at 5.07%. Spot gold down $5.50 the ounce to $18.68, lower by 0.3%. West Texas Intermediate crude 83.49 a barrel on WTI. As for the overall market backdrop, Ross Gerber is CEO at Gerber Kawasaki Wealth Management, and he was a guest right here on Bloomberg Business Week.
You know, I actually like this environment because I think the Fed is well overdone it. So, you know, we're seeing peak rates in here, and we haven't seen the economy roll over. The economy continues to be strong, and so we're expecting a much better than expected earnings report for Q3 here.
And you can hear more of that conversation on the Bloomberg Business Week podcast. Delta out with earnings this morning. One concern going forward, not just for Delta, but for all the other carriers, is the effect of heightened geopolitical risks coming out of the Middle East. Delta today down by 2.3%. Also reporting this morning, Walgreens Boots Alliance, that stock rallying today by 7%. Bank earnings bright and early tomorrow morning. Will be all over those numbers as they break. JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and Wells Fargo tomorrow morning. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Carol Massar along with Tim Stanovic live on the West Coast at Bloomberg Screen Time. We're going to get back to some of the conversations here in just a moment. But as we've been saying, the Bloomberg Business Week brand, it's a great one. And I know we're speaking our book a little bit, or I am.
Guilty as charged, but you know what? Nothing I would disagree with there.
Cross-section of covering business, markets, politics, economics, technology, culture, and more reminds us that our world, investment, and other requires us to be aware of so much going on broadly. And so with that in mind, we've got a debut to tell you about.
Yeah, it's the Business Week show. Bloomberg's Max Abelson is the host, and he's back in our New York studio, the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, to tell us all about the first episode. It's entitled Genius. Max, good to have you with us this afternoon. Congratulations on what I know is just an awesome show and an incredible launch. Just give us an idea of how the Business Week show came together.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I didn't know you two wouldn't be here in person. I miss hanging out with you, honestly. But, I can't hide it. It really does feel like kind of a momentous day. The team of wonderful, wonderful people I've worked on and I are so excited about this. We had really a challenge. The Business Week magazine is, I think, one of the great magazines of our time. And, the Business Week radio show is pretty darn good, too. The question was, what does it look like? If you want to turn Business Week and make something televisual out of it, because that was not an easy challenge. What we decided to do was think carefully about something that, Carol, reminds me of the way that you talk and think. We picked themes, deep themes that kind of rumble under the surface of business journalism, thinking like ambition, risk, genius, failure, and we decided to make episodes about those themes, and then we freed ourselves to work with Joel Weber and other people at Business Week, people here at Quick Take and Bloomberg Originals, to think about who are complicated and profound and deep and accomplished people that we could bring on so that through talking to them about their lives and their careers and ideas, we could understand those themes. And I hope listeners watch it because I think we've pulled it off.
I love the approach. With that in mind, Max, we want to give everyone a little taste of the first episode of the Business Week show. It is entitled Genius. And Max, your guests include Mariba Keja, space engineer and winner of the 2022 Genius Grant. So everybody listen and watch just for a moment for a little snippet of it.
The times of like the Renaissance, people looked at folks like, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, and they said, okay, these are geniuses in their own right? And people say, well, how can anybody be like another one of those? Science has developed so much beyond those days that there's no way for somebody to be able to be, quote unquote, this Renaissance person that knows very deeply things in all these different fields. Like, those days are gone, okay? But to me, the real genius is recognizing where you bring in smart people from other fields that complement and augment your own to solve wicked problems.
Yeah, connectedness, connections with one another. But my understanding, though, from reading a little bit of your writing, is that you were, I think in your childhood, you felt really isolated.
I did, yeah.
More of a job. What an interesting guy. Carol, I wish we could have heard his answer because it was like beautiful. He started talking about this very, very painful past and how it led kind of directly into becoming the sort of genius he is today. I mean, it wasn't necessarily like a feel-good interview. It was deep and it was complicated. It had all the things that I'm hoping that the Business Week show is going to have for our viewers.
You know, as you well know, the world is deep and complicated, right? And then sometimes we come out on the other side and we've either learned something so incredible. So I just think it's an interesting approach because it's not always the easy things that we learn the most from.
And Max, there's some good news for everyone listening who wanted to hear that answer. They can all catch the Business Week show debut episode with our own Max Abelson, who we're speaking to right now. New episodes come out Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bloomberg Originals, also on Apple TV, Roku, Samsung TV, Fire TV, also Bloomberg TV at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yeah, you know, and I just wonder, you know, the things, I feel like, Max, you are such a deep thinker about things and thoughtful. We hear it when we, you know, talk to you about a story. What was some of the things that you wanted to talk to him about?
Well, thanks for saying that. And I just want to say, you, Carol, are such a generous thinker. You exude, and Tim, you too, you exude it like an actual curiosity about other people. You know, I feel like it's a very rare attribute in life, you know, honestly, even in journalism. Like, to have genuine curiosity about other people and their experiences is so liberating because, you know, it takes some of the pressure off you. You know, I feel like I didn't have to be a genius here. I just had to come from a place of curiosity and say to Morbidja and our other guests, you know, how do you think about yourself and what genius can you recognize inside yourself, and in what ways do you rebel against the ways that we tend to think about genius? And you know, it's like I had to follow along for the ride. You know, I had to be a good listener. I had to pay attention to what they say, and because I didn't want to kind of ask a staccato series of preformed questions, I wanted to improvise and talk with them. I've really learned a lot. I have to say it's been very humbling to discover just how hard live interviews are that you two do seamlessly on the radio and TV. It is not the same as the journalism that goes into writing a Business Week story. It's a different beast entirely. I feel like I'm still just beginning to learn, but I can say it's both terrifying and also honestly pretty fun.
Hey, Max, thank you for all the kind words, by the way. And,
Thank you so much.
Right back at you. We love having you on, and we're so excited about this new program. Are you allowed to talk about some of the other guests here? Because one thing that has been so cool to see, being in our offices in New York City, are the people who come through for your show. Are we allowed to talk about the others who you have coming up?
Yeah, Tim, I mean, listen, how about this? Let's do a compromise. One thing I'll say is, without fetishizing sort of accomplishment, we've had Pulitzer winners, we've had Nobel Prize winners, we've had Genius Grant winners, we have presidential candidates. It's like this beautiful array of people who have done so much, people who have failed in such prominent ways, and people who have so much to offer that go way beyond just like kind of maybe the bullet point things you might know from Wikipedia. And I've had a really good time sort of, instead of concentrating what I've learned about someone in like, let's say like 1,000 words or 2,000 words or 3,000 words if it's really long, I've had a really good time of putting myself in the position where what I'm doing is literally just asking questions and then trying to enable people to kind of like reveal themselves in front of me. It's like, it's very mystical. I feel like I hope we get to keep doing it because it's gonna take a long time to figure out like how to really do it properly. But yeah, the guests have been a hoot, and I'm really hoping people will watch tonight and in the weeks ahead.
Well, absolutely, and we hope you do it for a long, long time. Max Abelson, thank you so much. Catch the Business Week show debuting tonight. New episodes dropping Thursdays, 8:30 p.m. on Bloomberg Originals and on TV at 10:30 p.m.
your company news headlines on Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. New York City is home to more securities industry workers than at any point in more than 20 years, but a top state official says job cuts triggered by a banking sector slump could put more of them at risk. And with more on that story, here's Bloomberg's Steve Rappaport.
Charlie, according to a report from New York State Comptroller Thomas DiNapoli, the city's securities industry accounted for 195,100 jobs on average for the first 8 months of 2023. He attributes the strength to a hiring surge in response to record profits in 2021. But earnings and revenue have softened in part because rising interest rates have weighed on deal volume. That has prompted New York-based financial giants, including Citigroup, Morgan Stanley, and Goldman Sachs Group, to thin their ranks. DiNapoli says these are volatile times in America and globally, and Wall Street's relatively stable profits and employment levels could change quickly. Charlie?
And that's Steve Rappaport reporting Citigroup shares unchanged on the day ahead of earnings tomorrow at 41.53. Morgan Stanley today down 1.4%. Goldman Sachs shares lower today by 1%. A day after their mega deal was announced, shares of ExxonMobil and Pioneer Natural Resources moved lower. Pioneer Natural Resources CEO Scott Sheffield is capping a storied career with a massive payout. Now, according to a proxy filing, Sheffield, who has led Pioneer for more than 20 years, is in line to get at least $151 million in mostly stock and potentially more. And those are some of the top company stories that we're following for you at this hour. And this is Bloomberg.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Messer and Tim Stenevec on Bloomberg Radio.
It is Bloomberg Business Week. Tim Stenevec along with Carol Masser. We're live from Hollywood. Bloomberg Screen Time Summit here in California. Having a really, really awesome program. Let's go from Hollywood to Washington, D.C. now for a check on the latest world and national news. We got Nancy Lyons standing by in the Bloomberg 99.1 office in Washington, D.C. Hey, Nance.
Thanks, Tim. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is finished making the rounds in Israel, but is expanding his travel schedule and will now go to Qatar later this week to discuss Hamas leaders. Qatar is seen as a possible intermediary in discussions about hostages being held by Hamas, and it's also overseeing the release of $6 billion in Iranian funds. The U.S. and Qatar have reached an informal understanding to hold off distributing that oil revenue until more is learned about potential Iran involvement in the Hamas attacks. Secretary Blinken says so far none of this money has been released.
We have strict oversight of the funds, and we retain the right to freeze them.
Blinken says he'll also visit Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Egypt. The death toll is now up to more than 2,600 in the war between Israel and Hamas. 27 Americans are now included in that count. Plus, there are more people missing, with many believed to be hostages. The International Committee of the Red Cross says it's been in touch with Hamas and Israeli officials as it works to secure their release. Congressman Steve Scalise is still struggling to find the votes he needs to become the next Speaker of the House. Bloomberg's deputy congressional editor Mike Dorning tells Bloomberg's Sound On the rifts that were created over the ousting of Speaker Kevin McCarthy have only grown deeper.
What's happened is instead of healing or closing any of those rifts, they've only deepened and there's more fractures that are appearing. So basically, the Republican Party over the last 9 days in the House has pulled farther apart instead of coming together.
Again.
And we're not at the point yet where they're coming together.
Again, that's Bloomberg's Mike Dorning. One Republican lawmaker left a closed-door meeting earlier today saying it's Festivus in there with an airing of grievances, and another saying it had been an episode of Veep, but now has become the House of Cards. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons. Now back to you, Carol and Tim.
All right, Nancy, that's like those guys should be at screen time. I mean, with all those
No, they would not get in. Security is high, okay?
It is pretty high.
No airing of grievances allowed here.
It's like a reality show. We did see Kris Jenner before.
She had cameras following her around from Hulu.
They were following every move.
Mm-hmm.
I think we got caught in some shots before.
Well, we'll be on not keeping up with the Kardashians anymore. It's just called the Kardashians now.
Yep. It's not keeping up. It's
Nope.
just them.
It's just them.
All right. Having said that, we just want to bring you to, there's a great run through on the Bloomberg, just kind of keeping track of everything in and around screen time today. Netflix co-chief executive officer Ted Sarandos saying talks with striking actors broke down after the union asked for a levy on streaming customers on top of a bonus plan for successful shows that the media companies had already offered. So you're talking about layering on more costs, right?
Yeah,
or fees or charges, if you will.
Exactly. Sarandos saying the ask, quote, just felt like a bridge too far to add this deep in the negotiations. We should note the Screen Actors Guild has been on strike since July. They're looking for improved pay, a share of streaming revenue, and restrictions on the use of AI. A separate writers' strike did just end.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I highly recommend you check this out online because a lot of conversations have either kicked off with or at some point have got into the conflict, the attack